have some light on stage, gentlemen, so that Mama Mongela can read her notes. Thank you.
Yeah. My dear sisters from all over Africa, I say good morning to all of you. Can I start by just mentioning one very important young lady among us? That is Zanele Mbeki. She just turned 8 years, 08, yesterday. And because we need her, we are going to crown her. So if she starts from 8, she will go a long way to liberate this African continent. I just want to be brief because I would like you to hear what the other people have to say. When I was invited to this meeting, I really appreciated the invitation from Madame Zanele Mbeki. She has been an instrument on the African liberation for women. She organized on several occasions the SAWID and brought in all women from rural areas. She didn't want to be a first lady. For those who know her, I don't even know where she's sitting. Because some people, some women, the mistake they make, once they marry presidents, they think they are more than the presidents themselves. But not Zanele Mbeki. May I say today we have a very, very important topic. But before that, I would like to introduce you my mentor. And that is no other person than Gertrude Ibengwe Mongela. Please come on the stage. Quickly, we don't have the time. Gertrude, can you come on the stage? Quickly.
She's there.
She's my technical mentor. You see the names are similar. The only difference is the middle name. I am Gertrude Ibengwe Mongela. She is Gertrude Mugwe Mongela. You can guess.
Yes.
She is my granddaughter who just graduated as a chemical engineer.
Oh.
So I came with her, and I was happy the organizers allowed me to come with her because she's mentoring me technically. And at the same time, I'm mentoring her to take over from me. So this is what we have been given as a homework, and I think this is what we are going to discuss. How many people have you mentored to take over, starting from your own family? Gertrude, go and take your place. In this discussion, I just want to say, because we have very little time, I just want to say, what are we looking at? We have been working all along, all the years, to just say, what do we want? And the big question today I want you to answer, because I've been looking for it, is this the Africa, are you seeing the Africa which we women want? The economic, the political, the social, the technological, these are the answers we have to look for. That is one. The other thing I want us to look at, we have never rested on the African continent. We have worked during slavery. We have worked during apartheid. I remember the moments I used to jump in on the seats to defend South Africa dismantling apartheid because they were not yet a nation, a state. But most of us African women would jump on the agenda and talk on their behalf until apartheid was dismantled. We have been working on dismantling colonialism, and we worked hard. The unfortunate thing is that after the liberation, the men let us down. They took it all. And we've started a new liberation front where we women want to be equal. Men and women on the continent to be equal human beings. The other thing I would like us to pay attention to is that because we've never rested, the first movement on the African continent was PAO, the Pan-African Women Movement, which worked so hard for liberation. And we connected sisters across the continent in 1962, before even the AOU. Let's clap for the African women. Before even the men created the AOU, the women had power. And that shows the strength of the women on the continent. But where the momentum is slowing down. In Beijing, I did give homework as Secretary General of the conference that we have begun a revolution. Before I even thought of the fourth industrial revolution, I thought there must be a social revolution which has begun and which we have to work hard to intensify the momentum, to move very quickly to come to the goals of the platform for action. I do hope, my dear sisters, you keep that in mind. 25 years after Beijing is just across, coming very soon. Do we need to wait for another 25 years to complete that revolution? And the question then we have to ask ourselves, while we are still on the revolution, we declared in Beijing the social revolution. Are we fitting in the fourth industrial revolution? If we are not, then how are you going to do it? With the technology, women are so much marginalized. They are so much away from the technology. How can they get into the industrial revolution? Our president in Tanzania, John Pombe Magufuli, is running around everywhere talking about the industrial revolution. But today we must have some of the solutions to such presidents to tell them if they want a really industrial revolution on the continent, they should take into consideration 1, 2, 3, 4, which will be decided upon by AWID. I want that contribution to go home with, to give to my president and say, if you want to be right with the industrial revolution in Tanzania, you must take into consideration the fourth industrial revolution with technology. And if you want to have your majority, which is women, you must consider how you get these women into the technology. I think this is what we are talking here today. The other thing which we should be looking at, the other issues, do we really want to redefine or to have new schools of thought? Or do we want to stay in the same parameters and hope to have the revolution? Both the social revolution we declared in Beijing and also the fourth industrial revolution. We have to consider some of the things. And I think one important thing we have to consider is how to create and how to strengthen the momentum. Dada Zanelli, where is Dada? Dada is called his sister in Swahili. Dada, you have made us proud. You have brought us all together so that we can network, so that we can continue thinking and unpackaging the way we are going to be in the fourth industrial revolution. There are so many networks on the continent, women's network, but this one is touching so many women on the grassroots. We have people here who cannot see. We have people here who cannot read properly. And I'm one of the technological illiterate in this room. And there are many of us. We have to consider that because we will become soon obsolete in the fourth industrial revolution. We cannot keep on singing what we did in Beijing, what we did in Nairobi, if we do not repackage ourselves. So even for the older generation, as we hand over to the new generation, we have to trade in with them. The older generation has the experience, the young generation has the energy, and they have been exposed to technology. We have to consider how we are going to work together to create that strong movement. And that's an African culture. In Africa, the granddaughter, the daughter, the grandmother, the great-grandmother are the same thing, but they keep on moving together and giving each other knowledge. May I just say, because the other members are going to speak on this topic, may I just say that without too much ado, I would like to say the history we have already created must be the base of our action for strengthening our movement. We must also closing the gap, the digital and technological gap. We must look for new school of thoughts on economy, on management, on political leadership in order to be able to move ahead. We must also reconsider our space within the African continent. May I just end here na dada Zaneli, Mungu akubariki sana 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 sana. Sina mengi ya kusema dadangu, zaidi ya kusema Mungu akuongezee uhai. May I translate this, Dada Zanel, may God bless you. And may all the women pray for Dada Zanel to grow stronger from the age 8 she is today, to become a youngster, to become a mother and a grandmother. Thank you very much.
Over here, please. Thank you very much to you, Dr. Mangela, for reminding us where the African women's movement began, and also for castigating us for not doing enough to carry on its legacy. So I hope right now we will try to answer to some of the issues you've raised as we take this issue forward with our panelists. So the theme is strengthening the women's movement on the continent. And shall I start with you at the furthest end? Just give me your impressions as to what needs to be done to strengthen the women's movement and where there were challenges. But ladies, can we discuss the solutions as well? It's very important not to just keep focusing on the problem. So Anne, over to you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Bomme, my sisters, my aunts, my mothers, my daughters, but very much so, Mama Zanele and Becky. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to pick up from where Dr. Pumzile gave her message about where, the many challenges that we have. But I really want to focus this on the fact that collectively, as UN Women, with the African Union, and with many women leaders, including Dr. Mongela, we have pulled together what is called the Africa Women Leaders Network. And the Africa Women Leaders Network was formed in June 2017 with the express intention of reclaiming some of the energy that has been lost over time, where many, many women's movements were created. You know, I grew up under the Maendeleo ya Wanawake movement in Kenya, where I was a young Maendeleo ya Wanawake woman. But that's an organization that with time, from a resource perspective, from political interference, I would say, sort of lost its way and struggled to continue and, you know. And so the Africa Women Leaders Network is basically saying this message that we have, that it's 217 years for us to achieve gender equality if we continue at our current pace. We have to change that story. But the second thing is that even as we see huge pushback from our male political leaders in terms of sharing power with women, a lot of what the African Women Leaders Network was created to do was to really step in and bolster women and women's movements wherever they are as it's required. I was just sharing the other day how women in Lesotho are trying really hard to be part of a national dialogue on women, on peace and reform in the country, peace reform in the country. But it's an uphill battle for them. The Africa Women Leaders Network, and now with AWID as an affiliate of that, would be able to say, let's send a group of women who can stand with the women in Lesotho and make sure that they are part of that dialogue in a real solid way. We've seen this in countries like South Sudan when things were really, really bad. I mean, it's reverted now, but about 5 years ago, we had a very, very strong group of women and women's movements who really supported the South Sudanese Women's Network to try to make sure that they're able to participate. And you know, we use our resources as we know how. So the wives of the different leaders got together and began to negotiate on behalf of for their husbands. But I think the key thing really is that we have the opportunity to create a new type of network that really carries the majority of the CSOs that we have now. So we have many, many, many organizations that work together. But where is the pinnacle? And so what the Africa Women Leaders Network and what this IWEED, from my understanding, is really meant to do is to say, how do we make sure that peace prevails? That the UN Resolution 1325 prevails, that really we are able to achieve the goals that were set as in 2011, 201, the Resolution 1325 was signed and agreed upon. How do we make sure that peace prevails? How do we make sure that Beijing plus 25 actually begins to achieve the original intentions of the Beijing 25 years ago? So the idea of pulling together a women's leadership network is really designed to say, how do we actually start positioning ourselves collectively and as women from all over Africa pulling together peace missions that can actually go and drive peace? So peace is one of the biggest things that we want to drive through these networks.
And using our collective strength is what I'm understanding from you. Memory, let's get your views, because you work across the continent with Femnet. What have you identified as the challenges, but also where are the opportunities for strengthening the women's movement?
Thank you. I really want to acknowledge being here. I'm here as possibly the youngest in this panel, but not the youngest in this room. But to say from what Dr. Mongela said about having this intergenerational approach to everything that we do, I think that is probably where I'll start from and say, who is writing her story? You know, here we know about the leaders, the African, Pan-Africanist leaders. We only know the narrative of the patriarchs. So I think it's time, one of the major challenges is for us to really face and name what it is. We need to name and we need to understand the system that we are fighting, that we have a patriarchal system and be bold about it. And to say it's not the first time that African women have been in the forefront, that African women have made waves, that African women have changed, but no one has written about it. So our challenge is to put our narrative out there. Chimamanda Ngozi, a Nigerian activist, talks about the danger of one narrative. The narrative that dominates is a patriarchal narrative. So in terms of strengthening the movement, we should be pushing the feminist and be bold about the feminist. I will quote what Madame Astor Koite, who is the president of the Pan-African Women's Organization, this year here in South Africa, at the 56th anniversary, and you have it in your book, she talked about how the women's movement is constantly being attacked by being a product of Western feminism influences. We are feminists, but we are afraid to be associated with being feminist, or even to say I'm a feminist, because it is the attack and it's the weapon that is being used and being driven by a patriarchal agenda. So we must be very clear. We must be bold enough to be able to stand up as African women. And this convening, which I should say is one of the few, if not the only ones, that I know across the African continent, where African women set the agenda, use their resources. I looked at the partners, I looked at the sponsors, they're African women. And I would really want to just pause and applaud all the women who have supported.
Thank you.
And when we say supporting, it's identifying the women who have money, which we never talk about. But we should know things about power. So having women who have money, who can drive an agenda for women's rights, which is political like this, I am very honored to be here. And from a Pan-African perspective, South Africa has always led as the first. Southern Africa is really leading as the first. So I just want to end by saying we must, in solidarity, also understand and also tune in and tap into the other struggles happening in other regions of Africa. But I'll talk more about them later.
As a journalist, I really want to commend what you've said about her story. I mean, when I watched that Hollywood movie, Hidden Figures, to find out that the first computing scientist at NASA was a woman, and we don't know that. That is actually deplorable. May I ask the social media managers, please hashtag this. Feminism is not a dirty word. Ms. Sarah Longwe, please give us your perspective from Zambia and wherever else you've worked. The successes, the failures, and the way forward.
Okay. Good morning, sisters of all ages. For me, I'm proud to be here because the journey for gender equality and women's empowerment is not yet done. So I really appreciate being together here and building on what we have done, like our sisters who talked to us using the video link. You know, they actually did say aspects that we have achieved. They also mentioned some of the difficulties that we have gone through. However, we should never give up. So this is where my focus will be. What strategies will really help us? And one of them is we should be able, around this room, to recognize that patriarchy is real. And often it's hidden. But then the results are very vivid, which we have all seen. The other aspect we need to do is the way we've been mobilized here, let's continue to have such kind of cultivation of mobilization. And also what issues, and I'm sure they'll come out, I want to hear what issues are out there that we really need to be tackling. And what kind of medium should we be using? Which brings me into the fourth industrial revolution. And all of us are holding things in our hands or they are in the handbag and so forth. I think we should share more on how we utilize this technology. Already, we are seated here, we're not standing using the microphone, so we are already in it. So really, I would like to contribute more on the way forward and making sure that our movement, you know, gains momentum and doesn't fizzle away at all.
Colleen Low Mornay, please could you tell us a little bit about the work you do at Gender Links and what you think could be done to strengthen the women's movement?
Sanbonani, Junela,
Ahemme,
Molweni,
Molo Mama.
Bon dia.
Bon dia.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Habari.
Nzuri.
Mangwana ne akanaka. Muri bwanji. Great. That's the work we do. I know that we have already said a lot about Mbeki turning 80 today. And if we had time, Lerato, to sing her happy birthday again, I would say, let's sing her happy birthday again.
I already have a demerit for that one. She doesn't want any attention on herself
I know,
today.
But I want to focus on that for 1 minute because of the particular brand of feminist leadership that she brings.
Yes.
Leadership from behind. I have watched Mbeki for many years, since Beijing, Mam Mongela. I've watched her at the UN when she was First Lady, refusing to stand in the queue when she could have cut the queue, standing with us as NGOs, and wearing an NGO pass when she was the First Lady. That is leadership from behind. And it is a brand of leadership that we need to celebrate, because this year, we in South Africa and all of Africa woke up mourning at the passing of Winnie Madikizela Mandela because we had not told her things we wanted to tell her when she was alive.
Yes.
And it was Graça Machel who said to us, all these outpourings, all these wake-keepings and so on, if only we had said these things to her when she was alive. So let us not make that mistake. Again. Let us celebrate Sizanele and all that she means to us while she is with us. Amen. And let us learn from that. I say this also because in turning 80, I imagine, I'm just a few years younger than her, but I imagine that in turning 80, she is able to look at this broad sweep of history. She can look at her grandmother, her mother herself, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, and she can see change. And I think that is what gives us courage in the women's movement. If you look at the 100 years that you can relate to as an individual through all your relationships, you see change. So let me talk a little bit about the broad sweep of change here in Southern Africa. We are, most of us, from Southern Africa. We are a region of conflict, of struggle. And we saw in that struggle gender struggles beginning to be mentioned, but by and large, these were colonial struggles. And then we had brief periods of euphoria. We had independence. We had democracy. Those brief periods of euphoria, we thought it was all done. I remember my own daughter saying, Mom, it's over. Why do you still need to struggle? And I said to them, girls, the line is very fine, you know? Yeah. It can move backwards and forwards at any given time. You have to guard this line. And we have now entered a period, I think Sis Pumzile referred to it as this crossroads, yeah? Where we have one step forward, two steps backwards. We have backlash coming in. And where we see a new generation of young women who are angry because the fruits of freedom that they were promised, they're not seeing them. And the biggest way in which those fruits are failing to be delivered is the extremely high levels of gender violence that we have in our societies, because the single biggest indicator of gender inequality in our society are the levels of gender violence. So there they are in universities, institutions of higher learning. They are being raped at universities. They are not seeing the fruits of that freedom, so they are angry. And that is why women in this country in August, normally our Women's Month, the total shutdown campaign, they're here. Yes. They said, Angsafuni, I don't want to celebrate this Women's Month, yeah? There's nothing to celebrate. And they sat on the lawns of Union Building, and they insisted on seeing the president, and they wore black and red. And when the Minister of Higher Education came, they said, we don't want to see you, we want the president. We want to speak truth to power. And they spoke, this is the new generation of the women's movement. They organize through hashtags. They organize on the grounds. They mobilize in a way that we never could. This is amazing, yeah? And because of them, we had a GBV summit in early November, long before the 16 days. And we are saying to the president, make this one of your political priorities. Jobs, investment, ending GBV, it's a package. You can't separate these things. And we hope that President Cyril Ramaphosa and all the presidents in this region will call crisis summits, on GBV. And it is the young women who are leading us in that direction. I believe that one of the biggest challenges we have, and then I'll end, is to get this intergenerational dialogue going. How do we go from hashtags to action? Yeah. Because Mongela, you put it so well, the young people have the energy. We sitting here have the experience. Yeah. So how do we take these two E's, the energy and the experience, and put it together? So last week here, the steering committee of the GBV summit were sitting down at Union Building in a quiet, unpublicized meeting. What is the action plan? How do we move forward? If we can combine these two forces, then Sis Pumzile's dream of a 2030 where gender inequality has expired, I love it, gender inequality has expired, can be realized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Powerful. Colleen Low-Morner from Gender Links. You quoted Med Grasa Machel, and just last week she was in Abidjan, and she said this: we do not want a seat at the table. Quite frankly, we don't even like the shape of the table, and we want to redesign the menu. So let's have that conversation as well. Mayor Emakalia, your views, please, on how to strengthen the women's movement on the continent.
The region. Yeah. Thank you. Muli bwanji. Malibongwe. Thank you. I will start from saying 25 years after Beijing, 15 years after the AU protocol. 10 years for us, we are celebrating again in the SADC region, the SADC protocol on gender and development. So what? That's the question, so what? But again, to say we are quite privileged that we have been brought to Johannesburg, all these women. Is this not progress enough? It's progress. Going back, the women brought Beijing to SADC region. The Mongeras, the Sararongwes, and some of us were a bit younger, but they brought it in 1997, saying we need a declaration in the SADC region. We did it in Blantyre. They said, no, this is not enough. We need the SADC protocol. It should be binding. In 2005, we started the movement, really taking over the other movement that was there, that was brought there by the Mongeras. I do recall, I'm saying I'm very proud that now the 15 countries, except for Comoros, that has just joined the SADC, but the 15 countries are now very vibrant in terms of the alliance work. We started 5 people in Haberoni, but today it is in the 15 countries. I feel there is a movement. There is a movement. That's why we've been able to mobilize all these countries to here. But again, I'm saying, okay, so we've done all this. We have the protocol, which is quite strong. Do the women of SADC understand what this protocol is all about? Is it about them? Is it about just the member states? It has made a difference in other countries. We are hearing 49% of representation of women in South Africa. We are hearing of Mozambique. Mozambique has made a lot of gains, and Namibia has made a lot of gains, some countries as well. But others are quite far from making progress. Why? What we've done now as an alliance is to bring the young women. My colleagues have already talked about that. You can see Emma as she's moving on the podium, she's even failing to get on the steps. It means that time is running out on us. We need the young women, and we've done it. We have our young women in all the 15 member states to make sure that they are sustaining the work that we started way back in 1997. Mesara will go, Memongera will go, Mekolin will go, I will go. others should come in immediately to take over so that they are able to sustain the movement. And I'm proud they are part of this. They are part of this group. I'm very proud that they are with us. You do acknowledge. Make sure you acknowledge the old women that did so much.
Yes.
But we also want to invite you, get closer to us. I've always said this. If you think that Emma will just move out, it doesn't work like that. Get closer. I get very uncomfortable with you so that you take over, I go. You understand the language? In feminist, there's a saying, if you are not on the table, you'll be in the menu and you'll be eaten. So you understand this. So I think with our protocol, with our alliance intact, I'm hoping that the solution for us in the SADC region is there. It's just about convening and making sure that we are touching women's lives everywhere where they are. With our movement, we should be able to sustain the gains that have been done. However, do not forget that there are times when it has been very hard. Those who are big ones, they have pushed us out. As I'm speaking now, at times to get inside the SADC movement of the member states, it has been very difficult, but we have made it that if they don't want to see us through this door, we'll get through the chimney and we'll be there. So thank you. I will stop there, but we want an Africa, we want a SADC, we want our own countries, a country that these women want, and therefore we'll make sure that our member states comply to our demands. I thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so quite superficially, I'm going to pick on about 5 issues that have emerged whilst our panelists have spoken, and also from the 2 messages of solidarity. Just 5 things that I'm curious about. You'll just raise your hand if you think you can answer it. And then after that, I think, ladies, we can come to the floor in the interest of time. Emma, I just want to pick up on what you've just said. And Mama Mongela also alluded to it. She spoke about the women's movement starting in 1962. Sis Pumzile then mentioned the Maputo Protocol. We've been hearing about Beijing. You were telling us about the various networks in the region. So actually, it seems to me like the women's movement is alive and well. However, it seems to me like it's not properly networked, it's not known about particularly well, and it's the traction that's the issue. How do we give it that momentum?
Thank you. A very difficult question, but I think in the Alliance we've tried to simplify it. We have our networks in every country. And the hope and the desire is that those that read the networks in various countries, in this particular case, because the SADC protocol has all the thematic areas that most of these groups, these women that are gathered here belong to. The desire is that each one of us should be able to connect with this movement. However, let us not discount the fact that we are disintegrated. Many people are doing their own things. At times, others would try to bring us together, but it becomes difficult. You see the mining sector is on its own, the private sector is on its own, the NGOs are on their own. But I think this is a defining moment where today we are here and we are saying, do you belong to the mining sector? Do you belong to NGO A? Can we work together and to make a difference? Because there's strength in unity. Yeah. And hoping that by the time we get out of here, those who did not know maybe of the alliance, those who did not know there's a mining sector, the private sector, they should be able from here to start connecting and saying, we are going back home in our own country, but also within the region, we should be able to connect well.
Colleen, you wanted to add?
Yeah, I actually believe that, Lerato, we're living at one of the most exciting times. I'm not going to call it history, I'm going to call it her story. We're living at one of the most exciting times globally. Never before has there been actually such momentum. If we start with the global scenario, the Me Too, the Time's Up, the She Decides, in some ways, we needed those strong men in politics, those very patriarchal forces to stand up so that we could see just how bad it is out there, that force of patriarchy, so that we could get the reaction. So on the 20th of January, after Trump was inaugurated, women marched. Yes. And without being prompted, across the globe, 5 million women marched, including here. And then I come back to our own situation in this region. I mentioned the total shutdown, the I wear what I like in Botswana, and so forth. Women are marching. It is a question of how do we harness that energy and how do we turn that energy into action. The last point I'd like to make, and I think it's really important, is that in this room, we have the focal networks of the Gender Protocol Alliance from all the SADC countries, but we also have, and I ask them to raise their hands, many representatives from local government. Can all the people from local government, the councillors, raise their hands in this room? I know there are many of you, so raise up your hands, yeah? And that connection that we are making from global to regional to national, all the way to local level, is evident right here.
Memory, I want to bring you in on this one. And Colleen mentions the hashtag campaigns, Me Too, Time's Up, and a whole range of them. We see this outrage playing out technologically. Women commenting in digital spaces. But it doesn't translate on the ground. Where's the disconnect? There's no point in all of us being angry, hashtagging, if it doesn't change the fabric of society.
Yeah. Thanks, Loretta, for bringing that up. And I'll give a practical example of the hashtag Justice for Liz. So Justice for Liz is a hashtag that we started in Kenya. There was a young girl who was gang raped. And when she was gang raped, the perpetrators were given sentences of slashing the grass. So immediately, we got together. This was in feminist boardroom. We got together. We got different organizations and networks. And we got the hashtag Justice for Liz. Within 48 hours, it had 2 million endorsements.
Wow.
Yes. It was such a wave to the point that everyone was talking about Justice for Liz. It took 4 years for Liz to get justice. But what it did in the Kenya system, there was a special public prosecutor. So we know that in certain systems, usually it's the public prosecutor, but because of the highlight of that case, it actually called for a special prosecutor. It called for the different organizations to provide different support. So different organizations were providing psychosocial support, legal support, and that actually translated to other campaigns in other countries. So the hashtag Justice for Liz, just this year, we used it in Ghana. This year in Ghana, we did Justice for the Bank Mom. I'm sure most of you might have seen it on social media, where a woman went to the bank and the bank was closed and the security guard started beating her up. Oh. But we raised the flag and we used Justice for Bank Mom. So this is a hashtag that we've used over and over and over again in different circumstances, and it has really translated into action. Sometimes it's not that visible. It might not be that quick, because we know some of the things are structural and they take legislative. But the amount of attention that hashtags put. I'll give you another example quickly. In Kenya, in 2016, one of the musicians, Kofi Olomide, he came. And what he did is he abused one of the dancers who was female. He clapped her at the airport. It was not even 24 hours. Within, I think maybe, he did not even sleep in Kenya. He was deported immediately because the hashtag went out there to say we cannot stand it. So the Ministry of Gender issued a statement. The police was prosecuting. So there is power in hashtags, and we've seen it. We saw it here when it was Fees Must Fall in South Africa. The Fees Must Fall movement, I remember picking up one of the young ladies who said, this Fees Must Fall is being led by African black feminists. And she was very precise to put out a political agenda. And because of this hashtag, across we have the Bring Back Our Girls Boko Haram.
Yeah.
It's a hashtag which we use to bring attention to those 200 girls which were taken by Boko Haram. So it does translate. To date, after it's about 3 years now, we've seen close to 150 of those girls being returning back. So there is a bit power.
I think the point is made, absolutely, with unequivocally so. I'd like to raise the issue of economic empowerment, because we can meet here, but as Sis Pumzile said, let's not forget the rural women. Let's not forget the poor. Winnie Byanyima said 7 of the 10 most unequal societies in the world are in Africa. Those are a blemish on our conscience. Mama Mongela, with your experience, could you help us understand why we keep on being the face of poverty and in the throes of inequality, and what can be done to really change that for women?
Thank you very much. I think I would like to say all these years I've been around running about the gender issues. I've seen a few things which we need to address, to concentrate on what unites us and not what divides us. Up to 1984, in Nairobi, no, that was 86, in Nairobi, during the during the Third World Conference, the Nairobi Forward-Looking Strategies, we had to work hard to get out of that boundaries, the north, the south, the east, and so on, all these things. And I think within our nations, we still have clear indications of what divides us rather than what unites us. Tribe, religion, whatever. So I think that one should be also addressed. But there is another problem which I think somebody, one of the speakers, said about changing the tables. For me, I would like to add on, we have to eat in whatever place we have to get the energy to move on. But at the same time, get the energy to change the tables. Don't stop eating. Keep on eating. But being aware that we are on the wrong table, and that's why I'm suggesting, let those academicians who have produced, the gender experts, examine the tables we are on, political, economic, and social. Because you cannot have equality in a political system that does not practice democracy.
It's true.
That's the wrong table, and that's where we are today. We are trying to get into politics which was never considered, which had never considered that women are part of the decision makers. So we have to change this school of thoughts and reframe our societies. And we can do it if we women, without the modern technology, without laptops, without, you see, today when the lights went on, I was happy when they went off, because it reminded me of Senegal when we were preparing the document for Beijing. The lights went off. We lost the documents on the official laptops, but because women had kept on writing notes, we retrieved those notes and we had the document on hand. So what I'm saying is, use the skills of women, regardless of the level of technological knowledge. Let's use our traditional methods and join together regardless of what divides us, and starting from home. You cannot come and talk here about the equality of women when we are divided between the rural, the urban, the educated, the non-educated, the rich and the poor. I think we'll never make it. And finally, please, let's make sure that we love each other. Yes, thank you.
And I think Dr. Mangela's raising an interesting spectrum of issues. There's unity and solidarity when we see each other as equals, when we see our problems as mutual and common, and then we find those solutions, and then she points it to the political economy. It's that political economy I want to understand. We cannot continue. Frankly, I'll just be frank, I'm just bored of it. Women are the face of poverty, women are the victims. Man, we can't be doing that in 2018.
Thank you. Is it on? Yes. So, I mean, I think patriarchy prevails. It's very easy to say it's patriarchy, but let me just talk a little bit about what's going on with the economy. Last year we had globally what is called the high-level panel on women's economic empowerment. And it was really trying to understand why is it that we remain at this level of poverty and why women are not accessing economic opportunity as men are. And I'll just share with you a couple of statistics that for me are always wonderful because they shock us into the reality of this. So around the world, in most of our economies, between 25 to 35% of our economies, right, of the GDP comes from procurement, tenders, from public procurement, the purchase of goods and services by government across the world. In Africa, it is higher because we have less private sector. So it's about 35% of our economies come from this. The global average and the Africa average is that women businesses access 1% of that. So let me give you the statistic in South Africa. 635 billion is bought from government. Barely 5% of women access that. So already, the entire economy is designed against women wherever you are, whether rural or urban. So as the government is thinking about buying goods and services, they're not thinking about a rural woman as the person from whom they're going to purchase construction of a road or the building of RDP houses or whatever, wherever it is that there's huge amounts of the economy, all right? On top of that, we have easily in most of our African countries, 75% of women are in the informal sector. And what that means is that as you think about, let's say in South Africa as they describe what is being prioritized in the Job Summit and the Investment Summit, the talk was about black industrialists. So already it's biasing it towards the 2, 3, 4% who already have access, right? But I'll just give you an example of how there's been a bit of a turnaround here, and I'll use Kenya as an example. So on this very issue of procurement, the president, who was then Minister of Finance, pronounced that there would be 30% set aside for women, young people, and people with disabilities in terms of public procurement. But again, it's not accessible. We don't even have information. In South Africa, you can see the barriers. People just don't know where the opportunities are. So what Kenya started to do was they created an office called Access to Public Procurement. And just by creating that office, they would take the tenders and put them on Facebook so that people can access them, simplifying access. But what happened was an organization called this organization went and started mobilizing rural women. They went and identified the tenders. And they said, okay, rural roads need to be built, rural infrastructure needs to be built. Here is the tender. They went and they got procurement officers to sit with women cooperatives and women in rural areas. 70,000 women in rural Kenya were moved from incomes of $20 a month to $200 a month within 6 months just by shifting that game. So I think part of what is the issue, Lerato, is that if we continue doing business as we do, it automatically falls into those who already have access. So we've got to disrupt the value chain of opportunity so that women in both rural and urban areas can access it, or we remain the same.
I just have 2 more on this particular issue, but Sarah, I'd like you to come in here. We know statistically that the majority of African women, just by the accident of history, find themselves working, as Anne says, in the informal sector, but also in the agricultural sector. When we're talking land ownership, collateral, and empowerment, we are speaking to where the women are actually harnessing their core skill. And yet, they are subsistence farmers, they are vulnerable, they have inconsistent incomes. What can we do when we talk about rural empowerment? What do we do to say to those women who are more than 45% of the population across Africa, farm, but farm on scale, farm and make money, farm and disrupt?
For me, I think what we need to do is piggyback on the work that we've done. Since 1975, 43 years ago or so, we came up with SIDO, and SIDO has given birth to many other regional, international, and even national policies. These appear on the desks, and when our leaders go to CSW, to AU, they churn them out, you know? And this is our work. We fought for these, and yet they are not putting them in place. So for the rural women, they will really advance if all these protocols, conventions are all put into practice. And this is where I think we can not rely so much anymore on our sisters who are in higher levels, who are mostly acting like honorary males, and they are also acting as token women. Even if they've come from us, when they go there, they really speak like they are males. So for the rural women, these conventions that have been created by us, the noise we've made, like Mongera said, we were preparing in Senegal and all that. And I remember I was in charge in Femnet, I was a vice chairperson then, when the official document disappeared. We were doing a parallel document as a shadow. In the end, we had to give them our shadow report because it was electronically available with our comments already in black and so forth. So we didn't do that in vain. So for the rural women, they really want those aspects that are in the protocols, in the conventions and so forth, to be activated upon, you know. And the only way is us, away from the tokenism and all that, to really demand accountability and show how the majority of the women in Africa who are in rural areas, who are producing food, about, most of them are 80% are the ones who are producing the subsistence food that we eat, that we make sure that the trade, the subsidies, whatever which go to them, go on time. Yeah. And the marketing that is there is in their hands. Because at the moment, patriarchy just does lip service, just does diversionary tactics by doing research, by doing whatever. So I think in the rural women, with the rural women, and there are so many organizations that have been made, we have to point out how they are being left out. And this fourth industrial revolution, they are still doing the hoes and the axes. And of course, sometimes they throw tractors at them. But the farms are not ready for that kind of work. So our money for bringing those expensive things that are not useful to the rural women and leave them dependent on what they have always traditionally been doing. So I think that issue of making the policies that we fought for become a reality We want to live them. We don't want just to read them and see every January which African Union country has written the best, or we do this, we do that, and it's all rubbish.
Yeah. Okay.
Aruta continua.
All right, ladies, I'm going to take 2 more here, but this is what we're doing. Could I have 4 ladies by the microphone over there and 4 ladies by the microphone just behind me over here? If you're ready for your questions, 4 that way, 4 over there. Remember, no speeches allowed, ladies, please. Then we get through a lot. Memory, you mentioned earlier on that you wanted to commend some of the sponsors, because you can see that it's women's organizations, consortia, even women-owned businesses that have sponsored this forum. So we cannot talk about an Africa where women are poor, because there is an emergence, there's something changing in the economy. Women in political leadership and women, if not at executive level in corporates, at CEO level. Not enough, I accept, but the wealth is being created. What can be done? I think to conscientize other women that there's nothing wrong with making money and that your money can spread. But I want to add a caveat. I don't think it's fair that we are saying for every wealthy, politically networked woman, you must lift up another woman. It's the men who are running this economy. It is their job to lift up women as well. It can't just be the burden of women to do that heavy lifting.
Yes, so Lerato, I always watch your show, and you talk about economics. So I'm just going to put a little bit of a twist on the table where we are not. So a lot of us are still working a lot at the micro level issues and not so much the macro level issues. And one of the things that Madame Nkosazana Zuma, when she was still the head of the AU, she always used to say, we must put the whole to the museum, and we must stop the micro.
Yes.
But there's a strong link between the micro and the macro. But I just want to talk about the whole discourse around how much Africa as a whole, it loses $80 billion each year. And this is through illicit financial flows. And the illicit financial flows were classified or defined as in 3 ways. The first one being the taxation issues, the corporates, the mal-invoicing. So we have large corporate companies that are actually taking money out of Africa. Issues of corruption, issues of drug trafficking. So those are the issues where it's a discourse where the amount for every dollar that Africa received, it loses $10. And when we take just 5%, if we take, for example, we take 5%, which is lost through corruption, and we use it, it's enough to finance all the schools, provide education, provide quality health care. So that's a discourse. We are nowhere on that table where we are discussing those issues. There are 3 global companies which determine the debt of Africa. Our countries are accumulating debt. We know about the issues of China. We know that we are already mortgaging our lives. And for women, it has a completely different dynamic. The people who are discussing those issues are not putting a gender lens to it. This year, I was in a meeting. It was a global meeting, and they were talking about gender-responsive budgeting. Gender-responsive budgeting was coached, and it was what can I say? It was actually formulated here in South Africa, here in Tanzania, in Uganda, in Africa. We did it so well, but because some of the countries in the Western were not doing gender-responsive budgeting, they were actually claiming that, oh, there's a new model this year. Yet this is something that we have done all the time. So I just wanted to say there's a table on macro level economics that I think we should be on that table, and we should build our capacities around that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Your name and your question, please.
My name is Patiswe Moyo from Zimbabwe. I want to find out from our panelists. SADC countries sign and commit to a lot of regional, international, and policy frameworks. Is there something that can be done? We have SADC protocol and gender development. But if we look at all SADC countries, almost all of them, they are not following that. I'll take, for example, our country, Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, our constitution has got 3 sections that allude to the women empowerment and gender equality. But they are not following the constitution. Okay. What can be done to hold them accountable?
Fantastic. That's a great example of how you ask a question. Just ask the question. Yes, ma'am?
Yes. My name is Tasila Mbewe from Zambia. From your experience, the panel, I want to find out what strategies or approaches can we use to include women and girls, creating bridges that we can include them in the rural areas, most especially to strengthen the women's movement in the 4th Industrial Revolution.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
Tabile from Swaziland. My question, I think it's based on a statement that I heard earlier on about technology taking over our jobs. So my question is basically, as African women, when we are talking about artificial intelligence taking over, what is it that we are doing to stay aligned and make sure that we stay relevant?
Finally.
Good morning. My name is Bala Salabona. I'm from South Africa. This question is in relation to what Colleen and my Emma spoke regarding intergenerational dialogue and getting closer to the older women. How does the younger generation go about doing this? How does it look? Where do we start? How do we begin the conversation? What is the strategy?
Thank you very much. Shall we start with that last one? Harnessing the energy and the experience, which is what you spoke about, Colleen.
Thank you. Can I comment on that in the first one as well, if possible? I think that on the issue of the intergenerational dialogue, I think there are formal and informal ways that we need to do it. Let me start with the informal. On a number of occasions when I've spoken, after that, young women have come up to me and said, you know, do you have internships? Do you have mentorship programs? How can we get into, how can we connect? As I'm speaking, I have 2 young women coming to interns starting tomorrow because they approached me. It's not an advert, by the way. But I think, you know, we don't have to wait for formal processes. In terms of formal processes, as the SADC Gender Protocol Alliance, led by Emma, for which we provide the Secretariat, we did that structurally by creating a Young Women's Alliance. And including young women in the alliance so that we are really walking the talk, and I know Femnet does the same thing. So within our movements in formal ways, I think this is what we need to do. Just on the first question about government commitments, signing up, and then what do they do? So I'll take the SADC protocol as an example. In the first place, the SADC protocol would never have happened without civil society and the women's movement advocating for that. We said we want one sub-regional instrument that brings together the global, the continental into one instrument so that we can say if we monitor this one, we've monitored all of them. So we need to congratulate ourselves because it was one of the last things actually that President Mbeki did before he left office as chair of SADC was the adoption of the SADC protocol and now in its 10th year. Do we hold governments accountable? Yes. As the SADC Protocol Alliance, we produce an annual barometer in which we say 15 countries, 40 commitments, what is the government, what are governments doing? And we use that to keep pushing the envelope.
I don't know if I'm just adding my own spin on it, but I think perhaps the young lady was also suggesting that whilst all those things do happen, it doesn't seem like the leaders care. So you do your barometer, you say fail, so what? What are the consequences?
Emma, you want to add?
Yeah. Yes, member states, they become sovereign. That's what they call themselves. Each time you're pushing on issues, they will say they believe in sovereignty, and I've always repeated this. When it is the wrong things happening, they become sovereign. If there are the right things happening, they are together as a bloc. So we have repeatedly said, when it is about women issues, it's not a constitutional crisis. You understand the language? When it is about elections for them, it is a constitutional what? Crisis. When they are violating constitutions regarding the sections of women, it doesn't become a constitutional crisis at all. That's the language that we should push all the time to make them account for putting sections of women in the constitutions that they do not honor, but they do not even call them a constitutional crisis when they do not do them. And this we do through the barometer, like my colleague has said. However, we need to know that the protocol does not have sanctions for member states.
Yeah, exactly.
All the protocols, including the AU protocol, it does not have. It has consensus way of dealing with issues, and therefore it remains a challenge. That's why we are pushing it through our networks in the region to make our governments accountable, first at national level, second when they are doing rhetoric at regional level, and then thirdly when they go to SSW and stand and make nice statements when at home there's not much happening. So we need to follow all those steps, and us as civil society and those of goodwill in other sectors should be following and making every step known to everybody so that they can feel it. We call it naming and what? Shaming.
Okay, let's move on. Strategies to bridge the gap for women and girls, especially in rural areas, to lead us to the fourth industrial revolution.
Okay, very good one. I'll say something. In every country, there is something that is called the Universal Service Agency. Every telecoms company is required to set aside a certain amount of money whose main responsibility is to actually connect you, to make internet accessible for all. So we conducted a study along with the World Wide Web as UN Women across Africa, and we found that there is $400 million that is unspent. Governments are not using this money. South Africa has $10 million that's sitting in the USAF fund that is unspent. Burkina Faso has $77 million that's sitting there. So the point is that from Zambia, you need to approach a Universal Service Agency fund. And I think we need a hashtag Connect Us campaign to be started, because that is supposed to be the responsibility of these telecoms companies and your ministries of telecoms, who are supposed to invest in that. But I would say that if you approach them and really sort of push, and we can talk to you about how to make that happen. But what we have found is, as a result of that, women are highly excluded, and that what we are pushing for is that this 408 million that's unspent, at least 50% of that has got to go into women's connectivity itself, specifically to women. And in actual fact, if we really push it, all of it should go towards connecting women. So I would say that, and I would say that that's the same for the artificial intelligence issue, that obviously, the first thing that needs to happen is that we need to understand what it is. We need to understand what the opportunity is. And I think there are quite a few efforts that are out there, that are connecting especially young women. And we have an Africa-wide initiative called African Girls Can Code. And the idea with that is to try to go country by country and make sure that we have a critical mass of young women who are trained in artificial intelligence, who are able to code, so that they can be part and parcel of that conversation. And some of that work happens already in high schools. And so we already have quite a collective of young women, but it's not enough. And so we just need to keep pushing. But I think there are resources that are there. And many of our countries have campaigns that are called Internet for All. The World Economic Forum, and LC is in the back and is driving some of this work about Internet for All across Africa. These are initiatives that are out there that we all need to know about and participate in. So there is opportunity there.
And I think more simply, Anne, whilst we can code, we can also do the simple things. When we visit our grandmothers over Christmas, go with the smartphone and help your granny, much as young Gertrude Mongela Jr. is doing with hers.
My granny at 92 runs her farm off her cell phone. She uses M-Pesa and she pays them, she communicates with us, she texts me here in South Africa, asking me how I'm doing, and then tells me about how many macadamia nuts she has. Yeah, she's 92 years old. So it's possible.
That's amazing.
Anybody else want to speak to the issue of the digital revolution and staying relevant?
For me, I want to add on the last one, intergenerational dialogue. What we have done in Zambia and other places is that all the women's movements should have a quota of women on their boards so that they are part and parcel, like the non-governmental gender organization council, coordinating council in Zambia, NGOCC. There are 11 board members, and one of them has to represent youth, and it has to be female. So in that way, they come on board, and we work with them. And we do the same when we do give grants, because we have a basket fund, and most of our recipients are rural-based and CBOs, community-based organizations, and even there we make sure that some of these funds which we deploy to our members goes to the young people.
Fantastic. We're going to take 4 from this side. Mara, ladies, I said 4. Near disruptor. This is a disruption. Okay, let's go.
Good morning, ladies.
Yes.
My name is Mapopi. The surname is Branser. I'm from the Free State, Bloemfontein, South Africa. My question to Mama Mongela, thank you for the challenge of saying we need to develop young generation and we need to start from home. I've got a burden in my heart, probably can help me, that much as we want to raise with love and with the patient, the young girls that we are grooming from home, they seem to have a different mindset from what we have. When a child you tell, this is what you're supposed to do, baby girl, she sees, or she rather says, you kind of like, you're not treating her very well. And then how can this woman go and stand in front of the church, in front of the woman, as I'm the leader in the church, and I stand in front of the woman and encourage them to do what's supposed to be done. And then she goes behind my back and says, she talks so nicely and so beautiful at church, but at home, it's a different story. Because they don't want to listen. You say, baby girl, this is how it's supposed to be done.
Okay, what is the question?
The question is, how do you begin to have patience and the love to treat and to encourage the young woman at home? Because Mama said we need to start at home before we go to the society.
Okay.
That's
fantastic.
my question.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. My name is Lita Musimi Ogana. Now Dr. Lita.
I think Stan, just come closer to it.
How close?
There you go.
Can I hold it? Yeah, I'm from the African Union, actually, and a lot of questions that have been raised, they've touched on African Union. And so allow me to have a little bit time to be able to express myself.
Not in this forum. This is the plenary. You can use the opportunities in the workshops. Only questions now.
I don't have any question, but I have something to share.
No, ma'am, it's not fair. Because if I do it for you, I must do it for everybody else. Only questions now, please.
I think we can share experience and challenges.
In the workshops. Next question, please. Ma'am, in the workshops. Only questions now. Otherwise, we'll be here till the late afternoon. And there's lots of other sessions still. So unfortunately not. Only questions.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Yes, ma'am?
Greetings, everyone. My name is Portia Nyambose from the South African Female Students in Dialogue. My question is mainly to Dr. Gertrude Mongela. She spoke a lot about mentorship. So my question is based on bringing back the dignity of the young girls in high schools, in particular when they go through their menstrual cycle. So my point is, how do you then ensure as the award that all these girls get their dignity back? Because, you know, we are told that we can't be vocal. Even when we are vocal in high school, we are told that it's because we have the mood. We are going through a phase. We are on the mood. So we get less vocal women, in particular young women, because they are scared. How do we then ensure that we get this dignity, sanitary towels sent to them so they can get their dignity back?
Fantastic. Yes, ma'am?
Good morning. My name is Tata Tau from Botswana. I'm here with AWA Botswana. My question is in response to Dr. Mongela. She mentioned briefly how there's an apparent disassociation between rural and urban women.
Can you be a little louder, please?
Yes, you mentioned that there's an apparent disassociation between urban and rural women. I wanted to know, just from your thought, what do you think is causing this, and what can we actually do to bridge this gap?
Okay.
I couldn't get it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Dumela. My name is Rhoda Sakorwane. I'm also from Botswana. I'm a woman politician. I've been in the game for many, many years.
Yes.
My question is like the one that was posed by one lady who asked what action is maybe the alliance taking to force these countries that are still lagging behind to implement the instruments that they've been signing for many years, starting with the platform for action, the Beijing thing. They signed for it, and it's never implemented. My country is one country that is, performing badly. We are at 7%, around there, women representation. Okay. Our parties have quotas, like 50% that was passed by the 2005 SADC meeting. But still there's no implementation. Come election, they'll tell you that if we can reserve constituencies for women, it's undemocratic.
Okay.
The very same people who signed this protocol. So we really need help from somewhere. When I look at
we hope you're going to get your answers over the course of the next 3 days, but we get the gist of the question.
Please help us, otherwise we'll go home empty-handed.
I hope we'll help you in the plenary.
Habari za saizi, naitwa Flora Matias Mloezi, ni mkulima kutoka kijijini Tanzania. Nawashukuru sana waliotoa mada, lakini napenda kuwauliza kwamba mna mikakati gani kuhusu watoto wa kike ambao wanapata mimba katika umri mdogo na wengine wanakatishwa masomo, kwa sababu katika mada mmesema kwamba ni lazima wanawake tuende pamoja ili wanawake waweze kufikia kuwa viongozi. Watafikaje huko kama wengi wao wanapata mimba katika umri mdogo, lakini pia wanakatishwa masomo, ndoto zao? Tutafikaje huko kama, au kuna mikakati gani mlioiweka itakayowezesha watoto hao kupata elimu na kufikia ndoto zao? Asante.
Good afternoon. My name is Olga Spielman from the Eastern Cape. Representing Samkela Women's NGO. And I am just standing here. I firstly want to appreciate the platform of UNWIT. And onto it, I want to bring to our attention the skills between the women of Africa. And I want to know from UNWIT, is it not going just to stop here? It should rather than stopping here, it should start here. That the link and the integration between the women of Africa, how can it happen, Mam Zanele, so that the experience that our mothers and fathers, our sisters having in Africa in terms of textiles and all that stuff that they have there, how can we be brought in under one roof with unison? Because here what we need is oneness. Fantastic. In order to transfer the skills and have one mega project. Fantastic. For immaterial and stuff like that in Africa.
Thank you.
Secondary to that.
No, Sissy, I think that's enough. I think, yeah, it's enough. We've got it, skills transfer. Yes, ma'am?
Chamo Isabel Sebastião, jornalista Angola. Então duas questões, mas vão ser muito rápidas. Eu sei que aqui tem países que já estão mais desenvolvidos em ajudar mulheres. Então,
Could I ask you a favor? Not anybody here has got earphones on, so could we ask you to do that in English, please, unfortunately? Are you able to?
My name is Isabel Sebastião, jornalista Angola.
Yes.
Represento o Fórum de Mulheres Jornalistas para a Igualdade de Gênero.
Okay, ask your question and then we'll try to get somebody to answer it later on. I think that's fair.
Yes. Angola ainda está muito atrás no que tange ajuda mútua entre mulheres. Então, eu gostaria de saber aqui da sala de pessoas que já têm experiência, que tipo de métodos nós angolanas, né, podemos adotar para chegarmos ao nível de outros países que a mulher já tem voz. Nós em Angola ainda estamos num nível muito baixo. A outra coisa é que nós mulheres em Angola não conseguimos nos ajudar, né, mutuamente. Então, que tipo de experiência nós podemos ganhar desses países que as mulheres já estão mais unidas? Ainda notamos que em Angola temos muita desunião. É uma mulher a maltratar outra mulher.
Yes, ma'am?
In first place, how these forums could help the women in Angola, because at this moment we're far behind in comparison with everyone else here. And secondly, in Angola itself, we have no unity amongst women of different classes, different backgrounds. Based on your experiences, how could you help us to change the situation?
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Carolina Miranda. I come from Angola. I have one question. Eu gostaria de manifestar a minha alegria, a minha satisfação por fazer parte do grupo da Angola.
I would like to express my happiness and joy to be part of this group.
Por participar neste evento tão importante da Aliança da Mulher.
To be part of this important event of the Women Alliance.
E também dizer que, afinal de contas, esses movimentos feministas influenciam de que maneira as políticas públicas nos nossos estados.
And how do these feminist movements actually influence the policies, public policies?
Okay, thank you.
E também dizer que nós gostaríamos de que este movimento feminista crescesse e gostaria de saber o que nós vamos fazer para manter este movimento forte. Qual é a contribuição que nós vamos dar?
We would like to see this movement grow and would like to know how we can contribute to strengthen it.
Okay. Thank you. And finally.
Bom dia, meu nome é Rosária João Anela Mascami, venho de Moçambique. E em Moçambique, desde 1975, nós estamos a fazer face à alfabetização. Queremos atingir 0% de analfabetismo em Moçambique. No entanto, segundo a experiência da SADC, queríamos saber o que podemos fazer para poder fazer face a esta celeridade, para índice zero da mulher analfabeta.
That are on the ground.
Thank you so much. Thank you. There are a lot of questions, I know, ladies. Everybody wants to get a chance to talk, but it's been a long plenary. And unfortunately, if I opened it to everyone, we'll be here till the afternoon, and you won't get into those very exciting breakaway sessions, which we really want you to do. And we want you to also take a refreshment break. So this is not our position, it's my position. So if you're going to lynch anybody, it's me. But I hope you won't, because I'm trying to create a platform where you can all do as much as what the program promises. Is that okay? Okay, fantastic. Let us begin with some of the questions from Lusophone Africa, because there were a lot of questions that overlapped, especially from Angola. Does anybody here know a lot about Angola and can help our sisters from Angola understand how meetings like this can translate into real actionable policy on the ground in their countries, so that there can be real, visible, and tangible change in a country like Angola that's lagging behind the statistics from their experiences? Yes, ma'am. Mama Mongela wants to go. Yeah.
I think this is a challenge. We should not even tell them for just 1 minute. Maybe, can I ask Dada Zanel, can we look into how we can work with Mozambique and Angola and all those other people who are in the other networks? Let's zero on in these countries and even move some people to come and go and do some workshops there. I think that would be very beneficial to our sisters. Fantastic. And that is what partnership means. So look for resources, Dada Zanel, with the other colleagues who are here, and then we can move to the countries. I'm just saying one point. You see the linguistic divide.
Yes.
I think Mozambique and Angola are victims of the linguistic divide. So we should also look into even adopting Swahili.
Yes.
Not because it's my language, but because it connects across, and we can start not describing ourselves as Anglophone and Francophone and Russophone, and leaving some of our sisters out.
On that point, Mama Mongela, there was a question asked in Swahili and we were all stumped, but you understood what it was. Could you tell us what the question was and the answer, please?
Yes, I know that lady. She's typically from a village. Maybe this is her first time she's out. From wherever she is to Dar es Salaam to South Africa, which is a thing done by our organization called Women Gender Network. And it does connect all these people. And I think we are going to be very good partners with AWID to make sure we continue on the grassroots. We have some more people who are almost semi-illiterate, but she's doing a good job for the agriculture and the other things. What she's asking, how do we deal with early pregnancy, childhood pregnancies? She wants some solution to the problem. But again, that is not also a question we can just gloss over. It needs an in-depth discussion, how to save our children from becoming victims, rather than accommodating them, but rescuing them from becoming victims of early pregnancies.
And I think that issue, and I know you want to contribute, let's just pull that issue forward. Early pregnancy, another young lady said, girls who can't go to school when they are on their menstrual period because they are shamed for it. So you lose out on an education just for being a girl, just for being born like that. So it's attitudes in society, but it's attitudes that have to be broken, because you can't be disadvantaged because you're having a baby or because you're menstruating. How do we go about attending to some of those?
You know, this was one where we can talk about some progress, but some areas where there's really, really serious backtracking. On the dignity issue, I think we are seeing some progress, and I think here we very often don't congratulate our governments. There's been some movement. So at least we now have Tanzania, we have Kenya, we have South Africa, Botswana, who have actually legislated to remove tax from sanitary napkins. But we also have some countries who are beginning to finance the actual provision of sanitary napkins in schools. And I think this is a campaign that we should not let up on, because it is one that has been pushed a lot by civil society, and we need to keep on it until every single country in the world ensures that in Africa, ensures that young girls can go to school with free sanitary napkins, and that there are provisions of rooms and where they can actually operate with dignity. So I think that's one area that we can push on. On the issue of teenage pregnancy, and I think what the woman was sharing with a lot of concern, which many of us I think are concerned about, was very specific actually to Tanzania. And that was the fact that there has been pushback. Yes. Where young girls who get pregnant are then blocked from attending school. And so this is something that I think has been happening, and I think there's been some talk of it, but we haven't mobilized enough against it. Interestingly, there are other countries like in South Africa where you have teenage pregnancy, but the young women are able to go back to school. So I really think that this is an issue where, in the spirit of sexual reproductive health and rights, where there is increasing push by many organizations to say, this has to be done in a way that, number one, holds the man responsible, because it becomes an issue of just the young woman, and the young man or the older man is excluded from it. Very often there's older men and teachers and so on who are guilty of impregnating young girls. So I think this is one where there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And we need to figure out what kind of campaign we need to push to ensure that, that girls are not excluded, and that they don't get a mother penalty because of actually being pregnant.
Okay, quickly, I just want to add to the last item of child marriages, or whatever we can call it. One thing our colleagues from Tanzania should do is that there's a law in Tanzania which dates back to 23 years ago about the same. And it is about the removal of that law. If that law still stands in the statutes of Tanzania, the president is at liberty to use it in the wrong way. And therefore, we forgot, all of us, that we should have robbed even before. I've seen that law, Google it, you find it, it is there, and therefore it is the one that is influencing this wave. Before we remove that, our discussion will be in vain. We always rob it, but if the laws are there, the member states use them the way they want. I just wanted to remind ourselves on that. Secondly, the issue of Angola, Mozambique, and DR Congo. For Angola, yes, Angola, the alliance had difficulties to penetrate because of language, like you're saying. We had literally to move someone from Mozambique to start connecting with Angola to assist us with mobilizing of Angola. And as I'm talking now, we have a group in Angola led by Veronica, she's here, right here, that is now trying to mobilize so that they are connecting. They are actually the ones who have mobilized the women that you are seeing here through the Alliance initiative connected to the Development Trust, the Zanelmbek Development Trust. So we are hopeful that many of us, if we support the initiative, Angola will be able now to connect with everybody, but through this alliance, I think something is happening. We are seeing them now. They were not even speaking, some of them, they were not speaking even one single language of English, but now we can see them connecting, while us, we do not even want to speak their language, which is Russo. I think we need to do something about that. Likewise, for Mozambique, it's the same, but Mozambique now has so strong movements there. We have the Forum Mure. We have actually the Gender Links offices also in Tanzania, in Mozambique, and Mozambique is coming up well. It's just about connecting those ones to these ones if they are not able to understand each other. Finally, the issue about Botswana. Botswana, I want to make a clarification. Botswana never signed the protocol until last year. Exactly. They only signed the new version. They were not there in the old version. Exactly. They did indicate they did not want to commit to things that they were not able to do. And therefore they waited until last year when the protocol was reviewed, and now they are part of it. Though they were doing so much, but in terms of the protocol, they were not a signatory to the protocol. Likewise, they dragged a bit to sign the AU protocol. So I think we should be starting from there, engaging member states. But to assure you is that we hope that the member states will continue engaging. We are the Alliance and many other groups in the ministers' meeting. It's very important to be part of the gender ministers meeting so that you are able to influence the agenda from inside, apart from the lobbying that we do from outside. Otherwise, they just listen to you. If you are not part of them, they don't listen to you. But I think it is about us being part of the whole system of government, but also the system at AU, likewise, where they have the specialized technical working committee of the ministers. If we have our way there through GMAC, through feminist, I'm sure we can make a difference.
There was a subtext to the Botswana question, though, which was, we get lobbied to organize women to vote in elections, and then they forget about us.
Yes.
So how do we stop women getting co-opted into male agendas?
Yes, I will try to contribute to that one, and then finally also complete my homework where so many questions were directed to me. This one, in Tanzania, I'll give the example of Tanzania, which I see. There are NGOs like the TGNP, which is constantly creating awareness. And some groups we have, like myself, I do a lot of mentoring on political leadership. So you don't stop it after election. You have to continue. It's almost a permanent homework. Because once you finish an election, you begin, that's the beginning of a new election. And we always have plans, the women lawyers, the TGNP, the other groups also continue networking with the women, which keeps them aware. And in fact now, next year we are starting because we have the election in 2020. So maybe these are also the issues we are going to be sharing as we discuss techniques of keeping the agenda moving. And I would like to just say one other thing, is many people asked on the intergenerational networking. This also needs, we will one day have to discuss this because it's very tricky, particularly if you don't have the skills of dealing with the young ones. Because even the older ones, we have jumped out of our tradition of being grandmothers. Most of us here are grandmothers, but not in the real sense. We are so far removed from our grandchildren. We are busy tweeting and sending messages, and we are afraid because of the gap of education or the generational gap. We are afraid of tackling the difficult questions the grandchildren throw at us. So maybe there's some kind of training which is needed on how to go back to become grandmothers. And you should enjoy them. The problem we also make to the young people, because there is the formal and the informal. The informal is the relationship with your grandchildren, with your neighbors' children, sometimes calling them in for a cup of tea, and they call you Bibi, they get used to you, they can come and ask questions. We don't do that. And then the other, the formal one, is making sure that the young people are among us, like in this meeting. I remember when we were preparing Beijing, I made sure that during the regional meetings, we carried on the meeting of what we can say the elders. And alongside we had the youth meetings. And we learned a lot from the youth. Because I coined out this program because when I started organizing in New York one day, we were talking about, I brought in people to discuss about contraceptives, family planning, and all people were gray. And I discovered, do I have the right group? What right do they have to discuss about contraceptives? They have outgrown the reproductive age. So that's when I learned that there are certain issues. We are more successful by trusting the young people, by not calling them names. Yeah. We made a mistake during HIV. We would say, you young girl, you run around with boys, you are going to get HIV. You start by castigating rather than bringing them close to you, and then you can impart the information.
Yes. I think that's very good. I'd like to just finish off with the last two issues that were also brought up, because I think there was such an amalgam and they overlap. But from Mozambique, an interesting question came up. What do we need to do to eradicate illiteracy, get it to 0%? That's not just an issue unique to Mozambique. That is the beginning. The education of women is the beginning of their empowerment. What are the strides we've made, and how far do we still need to go, ladies? Not just in Mozambique, just in general.
Yeah, but generally, it's all of us. Because if we follow the statistics, you find that more women were literate at a certain point, and there are more illiterate people now, because it ties in with the way the resources are used. Although at a regional level, they agreed a certain percentage should be given to education, they're not doing it. And then when they use whatever they have, it is all towards empowering boys and men. And so we need to ourselves, as it was said by Emma, we need to shame our countries that they are not doing what they are supposed to do, because they've already agreed. There's education for all, isn't it? So we just have to pull those instruments we looked for and put them in a local context so that they understand. You know, I'm saying education for all because I know we've done it. But if I'm with the grassroots people, I can't say education for all. I have to put it in a certain way. And lastly, I may not get another chance, is that what we are dealing with here are political issues. Yeah. Personal is political. Yeah. So, example I can give is that FGM, last week I heard on BBC and I read that it's been reduced in the past 20 years. Yeah, exactly. In East Africa, it was 71% to 8%. In West Africa, it was 71 to 24%.
Exactly.
But how come that early marriages child marriages we've been talking about is increasing instead? The difference between these two is that the FGM does not tackle the patriarchy. Yes. It doesn't disrupt the man's going around, sleeping around. It doesn't disrupt his economy. But child marriage, there is the bride price. I don't know, it's a tradition, but it has a time limit. It's become a key component. If we talk against child marriage, we are now stopping the men from getting the bride price. So it is a political issue, it's an economic issue, and it's a subordination issue for women that we are put down. So as we go out, let's look at the issues we are dealing with being political. And by say political, I don't mean that we are partisan and so forth, but those who are partisan, bring them into that partisan realm, because this is about power. Right. Gender equality, all the things we're fighting for, it's about power. And power, just as at independence, we had to fight for it. It wasn't given. The time the imperialists gave up, it's where they saw that the locals were getting upper hand. So we need to do exactly the same. So let's look for ways in which we can shake the tree so that we have the apple, the mango, or whatever fall down and we eat it. Fantastic.
I don't want to belabor the point in the interest of time. Skills transfer, we're meeting here today. We come from different fields and we have so much to offer technically. The suggestion was, if we think of a textile business under the AWID umbrella, it was just an example, but there you could do everything. The engineers in the room could come up, the technicians could come up, the seamstresses could come up, the people who understand business and market development could come up. What is a constructive way of creating a value chain of women?
I think one of the things that we probably didn't highlight is the issue of how important data is going to be in this fourth revolution. So harnessing the different skills and putting up a very a rich database of who does what, and being able to use and to link people. Because as we go into the fourth revolution, everything is going to be about information. So knowing what the women in the rural areas, what sort of, and already that's already happening. But I think as women, we need to now bring the conversation to say, how do we start harnessing and creating these data hubs which can really work for us. And I just wanted to, because I won't have another chance, but to talk about two things. I think one of the things that was missing with Mama Mongela's movement is when they came back from Beijing, up to now, we are still shivering. We still feel the ground shaking on what happened after Beijing. So there was a whole gap in terms of raising the consciousness on the ideological issues that were tackled. Because we stand on the shoulders of our mothers, our grandmothers, who challenged Beijing to the core. Right now, if you talk of Beijing, you know, people, it disrupted the whole system. So we hope we'll have another wave coming up 2020. We need a wave which can really shake up. And there are just two things: the ideological wave of understanding patriarchy and the political wave of ending it. So I think those are the things that I just want to answer.
So ladies, I have a final question to all of you. But before you answer it, I just want you to think about it. I'm going to disrupt with my own. My final question is, we've heard the problems. What is the solution? If you could come up with a slogan, a marketing slogan, that is the solution, in 3 lines, what is that solution? So I just want you to take 30 seconds to think about it. And then I want the most courageous of you to tackle this question from me. We're going to have these fora every year. There are going to be elections. We're going to be voting. We're going to come back to these fora. We're going to evaluate. When are we going to stop talking and have the courage as African women to support and elect a woman candidate? We can't keep holding up Ellen Johnson Sirleaf as the only one. When are we going to do it? Because that is the game changer we need. That is the breakdown of patriarchy we need. At what point are we as African women voters going to stand up and say, Anne is our candidate and we're going for it, and we're never going to be manipulated by men? Whoever wants to take that one.
Yes. You know, I really think that this might be one of those where our young women should help us lead with another big hashtag for that. Because I think what we've seen with this hashtag movement is we are able to move so effectively. And there's a couple of things that are missing from this whole discussion about women presidents. The first thing, and this is one of the things that the African Women Leaders Network is set up to do, and for which I think AWIT will put a mark on this, and that is that women political leaders generally do not have the resources to run for presidency. And so one of the things that we're trying to pull is a fund to be able to actually fund women so that they can run for office, because they need the resources to do so. So that's one. But I think the other one is, once we have that, then it's the campaigns that we need to run. And we know that in the US now, a young Muslim leader was elected with no resources whatsoever. And she doesn't even have the resources to get to the White House. I mean, to Washington, D.C., to go to Congress, right? But she is going to Congress. And so, with zero resources even, if we are able to use our social media and start educating us, because we are the majority voters. And so I don't think this is something that is impossible to do, but I think we need to perhaps collectively identify country by country. We know where elections are coming, and decide, okay, for 2020, X country is running, here is the woman candidate. Can we put all our energy and resources behind it? All of us campaign behind that person. Put, a huge campaign behind that. And I think this is very, very possible. Okay.
I think Colleen just wants to add to that one, and then we can leave that question alone. Yes, Colleen?
I'll answer the other one as well, but let me start with this one. I'm going to be a bit of a thorn in the flesh of this discussion.
Your microphone is
off.
You've lost your... Oh.
I've lost my mic? Sorry.
Yeah, now.
Yeah. Because for me, it's not just about jobs for the girls. It is about gender equality for our nations and our regions.
Yes.
It's not just about any woman. If you
Yes.
gave me a feminist man and he stood up and said, I'm a feminist leader, I'd vote for him.
Yes.
Okay? So we need to go beyond numbers. We've been doing the number counting, and it's important. We need to be there in order to make the change. But we also need transformative leadership. And I think that you yourself said feminism is not a dirty word.
No.
So let us have leaders who are willing to put that hashtag next to their name.
Okay, fantastic. Solutions. We start with you, Emma.
The solutions.
The solutions in
Okay.
exactly 30 seconds.
Okay. Can you hear me? Oh, yeah. 30 seconds. I just want to say we need to demand, together we need to demand our space and make our leaders accountable for their obligations. All of us, but not disintegrated. If we are in Malawi, we are meeting the president, we are demanding to the president and his cabinet, we should be all of us speaking one language, not disintegrated language and then with the invisible hand that is patriarchy.
Fantastic. In 30 seconds, the solution.
In 30 seconds, my solution is simply this. Nothing succeeds like success. We've heard about naming and shaming. We've heard about the negative. Let's build on the positive. There are so many things that have happened in this region. We have developed a law on early child marriages. One country did that, other countries joined. We have seen situations in which the proportion of women in parliament has literally quadrupled. This country, for example, overnight, because certain political parties had the will or they looked at the electoral system and they changed it. For as many negative examples as we have positive examples. So let's push me, pull you until we get there.
Fantastic. Ms. Sarah?
Yeah. I have a hashtag, we have power. And with this, let us interrogate our own internal contradictions because we are patriarchal gatekeepers as women. And that's the reason why we don't vote for each other and so forth. Let's accept it and look at it. Why do we do it and how can we stop it? As me, as a grandmother, I think we should form an African grandmothers organization.
Yeah. For me, I really want us to embrace and to be bold enough to call ourselves feminists and to know that we are fighting against a patriarchal system rather than fighting individual men and women. And that we need to dismantle, we need to smash this patriarchy if we are to go further. Number two, a solution. We need to embrace our struggles. My struggle is your struggle. We are fighting one war, but the battles are different. If you know what happens to a girl, 2-year-old girl being cut off her genitalia, crying with a blunt knife in the name of FGM, because it's not happening here in South Africa or Zimbabwe, where I come from. It's not an excuse for us to join the movement of ending FGM in Africa. 20 million young girls are expected to undergo FGM. So we must go on to those fights. If we know that in Tanzania, a pregnant girl is not going to go to school because she's pregnant, and we do not join our Tanzanian sisters, because internally they might not be able to fight, because we know what it is to be polarized and to have a system as it is. We must, from the outside, hold hands and fight the battles of our sisters. We are our sisters' keepers.
Fantastic. And
like everybody else, I have a mic. I have a special one. On?
Yeah.
Hello. Can you hear me?
You're on.
Okay, there we're on. Controversially, I'd like to say, I think we need to invest in men's patriarchy, specifically. Because if we don't disrupt them, we are not going to have the space that we need. And so as we talk about ending child marriage or ending FGM, we have to go into the churches. We have to go into the traditional structures We have to go into the organizations where men sit and form that patriarchy and continue to rebuild it and disrupt it right there.
Let us disrupt. And finally, Mama Mongela, what is the solution?
Yes, the solution is, first of all, to hold everyone, be it a man or a woman, accountable. There are so many things with the instruments we've signed, which some of them hold women accountable. We've not done it. So let's do that. And then we hold the governments accountable and all the rest of the people accountable. And we do it more scientifically. List in our countries what to do. The other thing is men are our husbands, our sons, our children. We have failed to use them. And if we bring in languages which make them react, since they are still the majority of making laws and putting things in place, we are going to be the losers. In Swahili, you have to rub them with the back of the bottle. It's smooth. Sometimes this technique works. For example, we have now a president. He has managed to give free education up to secondary level. He has not managed to deal with the question of pregnant girls. We have to find a way of expressing ourselves which does not let him react and say, this is stupid women. I've given education up to secondary school, they now want their girls to get pregnant. That's what annoyed the president, that parents should be held responsible. He cannot give the money for education for the girls, and the parents are not the real parents we used to have. When I grew up, your father would not allow you to get pregnant. The parents are not careful. So we have also to find a way of dealing with the patriarchal in a way that we make them our partners without them knowing.
Ladies, let us applaud the collective wisdom of Dr. Gertrude Mongela, Ms. Emily Kalia, Ms. Colleen Lowe Morna, Ms. Sarah Longwe, who I'm told pioneered gender empowerment in her country, the system and the laws, Ms. Memory Kachambwa, and Ms. Anne Gitugu Shongwe. Can we say thank you very much for your time? We've come to the end of the plenary that was for the inaugural African Women in Dialogue, and now you're going to go into many more intensive sessions. To tell you how the day is going to pan out, I'd like to invite Linda Vilagazi to the stage just to give us a logistical plan for the afternoon. And then after lunch, ladies, and a few gentlemen, the feminists with us, know that Mike Boone is here, and please welcome him warmly with a lot of love and grace, because we women know how to do that. So from me, it's been fantastic. Take care. Maybe we should just stay put. Thank you. Sis Linda, over to you. Maybe you should use Anne's microphone just to tell everybody what to do. Okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon, wonderful ladies. My job is quite easy. We are the organizing team, and we continue to want to make your time here memorable and good. So I'm going to run through a few little pieces. If you miss anything, don't worry. You will be filled in. We are able to run this amazing conference because of 52 volunteers that are working with us. If you look around, they're at the back. Just wave. They are all wearing black t-shirts saying, "Ask me." They are your point of information. Anything you need, please talk to them. They are at hand to assist. But just a few things to make you aware of your comfort here. We've got a full medical center that's going to kick off running from today. It's on the International Center. You just ask one of them. If you feel a headache, you feel fainty, or the high blood pressure is up, or sugar, or whatever, they will take care of you. We also have the IT lounge on the domestic side. That's a space for you to sit. You might have met somebody, you want to talk, you want to have a brief meeting, you want to relax. It's got beautiful lounges and it's got refreshments throughout. But we want you in sessions. But I know sometimes you want to connect. That's your space, please use it. We have displays all over the foyer. You've seen some of them. There's more coming. Please use them. They are for you. Interact, get as much as you can. We sit here the whole day, and health-wise, sometimes it's not good. We get tired. Every morning, starting tomorrow, between 6 and 7, we're going to have meditation sessions and physical exercises. Aerobics, walking, jogging, stretching, anything that will just get the blood circulating. The venue is at the gym next to the chapel by the Silver Beach area. Again, the volunteers knows where this is. It's optional. All you have to know is where to go. You wake up in the morning, you go there, you will find an activity. Please use these activities, they are for you. If you want to go beyond 7 and you are all agreeing, as long as you are back here on time. But please use the exercises. I need to please ask everybody today to make a choice for the excursion they want to be part of on Thursday. It's all in your booklets. You saw there's almost 5 excursions. Please make sure by today you've made a choice at the desk. It's first time, first serve. You know there's Gold Reef City, there's shopping, there's a movie, Wakanda, so please make sure you go to something. I'm not so technologically advanced. Where do I point this? You can move my slide. Thank you. Very quickly. We've given you earphones. Please work with us. You only use them in here. Every time you go out to the bathroom, please leave them at the table outside. You pick it up again when you come in. Just make sure you never go to your room or to lunch with them. They don't work on anything. So just always drop them and pick them. We'll remind you if we see you, don't worry. As you can see, we don't run tea breaks at all. We start morning, we break at lunch. But refreshments are running throughout the conference. So feel free to get up, get a bread, get a fruit, get water, get coffee, so that your energy goes. Don't be surprised and say, I'm waiting for tea time, because we have a lot to talk about. You saw it here. Lunches today, which is where we're going, will be served at the Clover, which is this breakfast center next to us. And right behind it is the Serengeti. So those are the 2 venues for lunch. When we break here, could we please use that? Next slide. I'm not waking this thing up. Last one, anyway. Thank you. I just need to orientate you to what happens after lunch. It's very important for us that we get the logistics and the arrangements, because we're not coming back here. The session that kicks off after lunch is called the Breaking Barriers session. We're trying to connect with self and with each other so that for the week, we've cleared the barriers and the tensions and the whatever us coming from different spaces. This session is run by Mike Boone. He's been working with Sawit since the beginning. Some of you know him. Please use the session. We're giving it again as a gift to you so that you can deal with issues. We've had a lot of issues that we deal with here. So since yesterday when we all registered, you were given a small number on a white piece of paper. The numbers range between 1 and 42, because we've got 42 groups. There's 20 people in each group. Please make sure that you've got that number. That number helps you know what group you are going into after lunch. So we please have lunch. As soon as we finish lunch, please come back to the foyer, even on the outside. All the volunteers will be waving white papers, and on these papers there'll be a number. So if your number is 39, gravitate towards that volunteer. the volunteer will take you to your venue. You can see this place is huge. Even if I was to tell you where to go, you would never find it until Friday. And then we are gone when you come back. So please, come back to the foyer as soon as you can. Mike is going to do a 20-minute session with you now, just to give you a sense of what's going to happen, so that after lunch you go straight to your room. All the volunteers, 52, will be outside with numbers. Let's try and be seated in the rooms where we are meant to be at around 2:15. I see we overrun a bit. I'm going to say latest by 2:30. I know my slide said 2:15, but I'm mindful of the time lap. Can we be in those rooms by 2:30? Thank you so much. Thank you, Lerato.
Thank you.
If there's anything you missed, please talk to the volunteers. I thank you.
Thank you. I think that means we can go, ladies. Yes, I think that's what that means. Thank you. Eh? It's Mike. Okay, please don't
My
leave,
apologies.
ladies. Please don't
Just
leave.
sit back for Mike.
Please
He's going to
can
give
sit
you
down,
a
just the ladies on
taste
stage.
of what you're going to do after lunch. My apologies, please. Mike is ready here. Mike, please come on board.
Okay, no, the BBC is sending me to Kigali right now.
Well done, ladies. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good. Okay, thank you. Do I have volume? Yes, I do.
Sorry, we are.
That's all right. That's all right. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I have to say gentlemen because there's a few in the back there. I greet you, my mothers and my sisters. My name is Mike, and it's lovely to have you here. You've come from every part of our beautiful continent, the southern part, and we speak many languages. Quartarta. Comista. Bonjour. It's lovely having you with us. I greet you all. Jambo. Habari yako. Mzuri sana kabisa. So, you've spoken now with the most incredible intellectuals and thinkers, and every one of you that's here is here because you can contribute to our continent. The issue is not only the practical things we do, but the spirit with which we do it. And that spirit is going to carry us through the most difficult and challenging times that might arrive in the future. You are creating a new order, not just for Africa, but for the world, in terms of women and the equality of women and the real empowerment of women. I've had the great joy, many of you will know, of working with Ma'am Zanele since 2003, when we started South African Women in Dialogue. But that dialogue came from Central Africa because it was discovered there. There's a dialogue happening already because women are talking to each other. So what we are going to do now is we together are going to create the spirit of this connection. And when we've done that together, and I heard the word accountability just now, you are accountable for creating that spirit. So I'm going to do something now with you, and as it begins to happen, if you're able to, those of you right on the far side over there, if you can start moving around when it starts to happen. Come this way, closer in so that you're not far out there. And that group over there, you can start making your way to the side over here too. I'm going to ask you to choose a sound. You'll understand what I mean in a moment. And when you have chosen the sound that I give that you like, that becomes your sound, and you become responsible and accountable to make that sound continue. I'm going to give you 4. You choose one of the 4. Here is the first one. Da. Choose. Those of you. Join me if you like that. Da. Okay. The next one. Da. Join. Da. Next one. Da. And this is one's hard for me. Da. Okay. Now, when I start you, da, and you hear me start the next note, you who are doing that, the first one, put up your hands, and when you are putting up your hands, look around to see who your friends are in this whole audience who are making the same sound as you, because you have to keep that sound going without stopping. All right. Da. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Okay, whoa. Okay, that's good, that's good. Okay, now the next one. Da. Put your hands up. Da. Look around, look. Da. Keep it going. Keep it going. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Okay, 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 well done. Da. Okay. Da. Look at your partners, keep it going. Okay. Now, I'm going to start you. And when you hear me going, you start your note. You don't stop your note. You keep on and on and on going. That it might never stop, because it is the sharings of the women's voices that will keep this going forever. Forever. All right. Here we go. Da. 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 Stand up. Da. 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 Come this way there. Okay, okay. Do you hear this? Woo! Come back, come back, come back. There on the edge, come around the side. Those right at the back, come here to the side. Those there, come around the side here. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. And watch me when I say quiet and when I say louder and louder and louder and louder. And first of all, listen to your own voice and look for other people that, like you, can help your energy to continue, because this is a partnership. Our is a partnership. It's about sharing. So first of all, concentrate on your own voice, and then look for others that are like you and encourage them to do it with you. And until eventually you're able not only to concentrate on what you're doing, to hear the sound, the magic that comes with all of our voices. All right, you ready? Here we go. Da, 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 da. You're at the back, come to the front. There at the back, come to the front. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Yes! Da, 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 da. Well done. Stay where you are. Stay where you are. All right. Now, we're going to, because the South Africans are hosting us, the South Africans, I'm calling on you now. So I've chosen this song because this is a song that we sing, a celebration at weddings, a coming together at graduations. We always sing this song. And it's got a nice, easy refrain. So for those of you who are from different countries, listen carefully. You will hear the words very soon. South Africans, use your voices. My sisters from our sister nations, use your voices. Ntatintekele, ntatintekele, ntatintekele. Ntatintekele, ntatintekele, ntatintekele. Oh, lenai kya batla, ribatla wiapara, ritsaba ripo, zabatu, karifela, lenai kya batla. Ritsaba ripo, zabatu, karifela. Ntatintek, ntatintekele, 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 ntatintekele. Oh, lenai kya batla, ribatla wiapara, ritsaba ripu, sabatu, kari. Go and collect them, collect them. Lenai kya batla, ribatla wiapara, ritsaba ripu, sabatu, karifela. Siadamare. Ntatintekele. Tanamar. All right. I'm going to quieten you down where you are now. Yay! Now, right where you are. Now, here come the notes. Da, 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 da. Now, keep going, keep going, keep going. Ntatintekele, ntatintekele. Da, 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 da. Carry on with your note. Da, da, da. All right. Sabatu, Kalifela. All right, ladies. Okay, ladies. Ladies, we're going to stop you now. Yay. All right. Now, it is this energy of sharing and your participation that will keep a dialogue like this going forever. This is simply symbolic. If we don't do it together, it cannot continue. You know that after lunch, when you're going to go to lunch, when you finish lunch, you all come back to this area outside here. I'm reminding you what Mum Linda said. Look for the number. The number is on your name tag. That will be your breakaway room. Have a beautiful, beautiful discussion this afternoon. Ke leboha, everybody. Have a wonderful time. I'll see you later.